It is seldom the case that corrosion mitigation actions are aligned to either technical or business objectives by application of present work standards. There is a substantial opportunity to reduce the money spent on corrosion while delivering improved pipeline performance, with a very typical 40% savings compared with historical industry hazard assessment and mitigation standard practices. This is our motivation for our TRIAGE pipeline hazard classification and mitigation guidance service offer. This is how it works. We call it the TRIAGE corrosion triangle. Data patterns derived from predictive data analytical methods integrated into the corrosion threat assessment algorithms within the TRIAGE method are applied to corporate pipeline inventory to establish if the likelihood for each of the 3 mandatory contributing factors within the corrosion triangle align. When each factor is considered to be active for an individual pipeline, it positions us to suggest that pre-existing damage is likely in the case of historical mitigation has not been aligned to the hazard state. If one or more of 3 contributing factors has not been engaged during the operating lifetime of a specific pipeline, we are able to classify that pipeline is not vulnerable to corrosion and having the likelihood of a failure event essentially 0. TRIAGE is the only hazard assessment model that considers non-routine production patterns from upstream wells. This is where we consider former blind spot hazards, the hazard attributed to upstream well behavior. More than 90% of all pipeline failures are attributed to episodic high-risk events that occur at the startup of a specific subset of producing wells in Alberta. Startup events capable of transporting corrosive fluids associated with high shear hydraulic forces at the time of startup. The observation that corrosion damage is particularly linked to these non-routine well operations explains how failure events cluster around a subset of producing wells within a number of bad actor neighborhoods throughout Alberta. The pipeline failures are not widely distributed throughout the province. Terrain-induced slug flow in high-rate horizontal wells can deliver corrosive fugitive fluids into the production stream. Contributing factors are undulating inclination angle changes and rapid increase in gas delivery rates during a startup event. Terrain-induced slugging contributes to unstable flow conditions and rapid unloading of in-situ water volumes. Instantaneous water production rates can often exceed normal water production by 10 times. High shear stresses associated with slugging can transport corrosive fugitive fluids into the well and pipeline if they exist. Fugitive fluids can also be uplifted from conventional wells that exhibit high shear hydraulic events at startup. Spatial pipeline failure patterns affirm how specific stimulation and production practices contribute to corrosion susceptibility within clustered geographical regions. In southeast and eastern Alberta, the dominant failure mode is attributed to long residence time water film transport and slow corrosion rates, normally contributing to an operating lifetime of 20 to 30 years, the run-of-the-mill corrosion mechanism. Within this region, there is little exposure to episodic well startup events capable of causing high-rate corrosion, but there is correlation between corrosion within solution gas pipelines where oxygen ingress occurs at oil battery facilities receiving trucked-in production, or where oxygen ingress occurs into upstream production storage tankage. Within central, western, and northwestern operating regions, there is a domination of pipeline failure events attributed to detrimental well hydraulics and the uplift of fugitive corrosive fluids that are much more aggressive than the connate reservoir fluids themselves. In the third corner of the TRIAGE triad sits the normal run-of-the-mill NACE standard corrosion, exposure to low pH, slow-moving water films that accumulate in regions of stagnant, thick water film accumulation, where the maximum possible corrosion rate associated with normal fluids and the pipeline operating conditions is attributed to the dissolution of carbon dioxide into the water to depress local pH levels within stagnant trap regions. Whereas the NACE standard DeWard and Williams corrosion rate models are static models that imply corrosion will occur uniformly along a pipeline, the TRIAGE algorithms consider the implication of water film transport and the inclination angle of the pipeline profile to establish the likelihood and the severity of any potential stagnant water trap that may occur in the pipeline. Consideration of dynamic water fill movement within the triage model is an essential element to the corrosion triangle assessment accuracy. Finally, the triage corrosion triangle is transformed into a mathematical scoring algorithm to facilitate comparison of pipeline hazards throughout a corporate pipeline inventory and as a means to trigger appropriate mitigation response. At any time, please consider calling me, David Richardson, at the number on your screen to discuss our work and to arrange for a free trial access to your corporate triage results within AbaData. We look forward to sharing our ideas. Thank you for watching this video post.